Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the place of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." Pilate said, "Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did the others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it that you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not for this world, not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I'm a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" retorted Pilate. With this, he went out to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis of charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of Passover. Do you want me to release this king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising.
Thank you so much, Adam. Friends, please keep your Bibles open there, John 18. What we've been told is get rid of God and it will set you free. Instead of some sky fairy telling us how to live, we get to say, it's my life, it's my choice, it's my truth. And we think that is freedom. But look around our world. How do you reckon it's working out? My choice, my life, my truth. Because what happens when my truth and your truth collide? You say it's your land. Well, I say it's my land. That's my truth. You say you're free to hang the flag of your own country on lampposts. I say it's a hateful thing to do. You think it's okay to speak to me like that. You say you're just being honest, authentic. I say the way you spoke to me just then really hurt. How do we decide whose truth wins? Get rid of God, and it doesn't set us free. It sets us fighting with guns in Gaza, scuffles in the streets, and words over the washing up. We fight to get our own way. We fight for my truth to win over your truth. And whose truth wins? The truth that is told by the people with the most power. The people with the biggest guns. The people with the most online followers. The people with the sharpest tongues. And it makes for a brutal world, doesn't it? And haven't we had enough of it? Have you had enough of it, this fighting? And in our section of John's Gospel today, we see a beautiful thing because we see how Jesus will set us free from this fighting and set us free to live. As you probably know, the pre-Christian first century is just like the post-Christian 21st century. Everyone was playing power games. We pick up the action. Jesus has just been questioned by the Jewish leaders, and if they are going to stay in power, they are very clear that they need to get rid of Jesus. But the problem is they are under Roman rule, so they themselves, they don't have the power to get rid of him. So they take him to the people with power. They take him to the palace of the Roman governor. Do you see that? Verse 28, then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. And they ring the bell. Good morning. We need Pilate's authority to help us with an important political matter. And the person on the door says, come in. Pilate will see you in his office. And they say, oh, no, we can't come in. Do you see? By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. Oh, no, we can't come in. We can't do that because we worship the one true God, and you are a filthy heathen. And if we come into your house, it will make us ceremonially unclean. Do you see what's going on? They've got no political power, so they try and make up for it, claiming religious power. Which is a bit rich, don't you think? They're just about to hand the Lord of glory over to be crucified. No problem with that. But entering a Roman palace? Oh, can't possibly. They won't go in. They make Pilate come out to them. The power games have begun. Verse 29. So Pilate came out to them and asked, what charges are you bringing against this man? I take it Pilate was expecting them. The evening before, they'd asked him to send Roman troops out to help them arrest a dangerous political criminal. So Pilate would have known they were going to bring someone in, and they go, all right, he says, oh, you've got the man, have you? Well, if I'm going to take this to trial, I need to know exactly what the charges are. The charges. Do you see the Jewish leaders, they don't really have specific legal charges. Of course they don't. They just want rid of him. So they pretend to be all offended. You see that in verse 30. If he were not a criminal, they replied, we would not have handed him over to you. What are you implying? You don't think we'd have someone arrested without good reason, do you? If he were not a criminal, literally, if he were not doing evil, we wouldn't have handed him over to you. If he were not doing evil. I wonder whose idea of evil they're working with. Were they thinking maybe he was doing evil when he healed the sick? When he opened the eyes of the blind? When he touched lepers? When he fed the hungry? When he had meals with prostitutes and tax collectors and made friends with the people nobody else would talk to? Maybe it was when he challenged the hypocrisy of the religious leaders. Maybe it was when he called for justice for the poor. Maybe when he called for the temple to be open to everyone. He was doing evil. Do you see? He wasn't doing evil. But they have to deal with him because he is a threat to their power. So Pilate says, verse 31, take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. Pilate doesn't want to be played by them. He says, look, I'm a very busy man. If you won't even come into my house, and if you don't have an actual charge, something that will stand up under Roman law, then stop wasting my time. If it's some petty religious squabble, settle it yourselves. And they say, second half of verse 31, but we have no right to execute anyone. at the time of Pilate, because they were under Roman law, the Jewish leaders weren't allowed to execute anyone. So now the cat is out of the bag. They don't want to judge him by their own law because they're not really interested in truth or justice or anything like that. They just want him executed. Do you see the power games they're playing? They don't want to lose their power, so they need to get rid of him. But Jesus was popular with the people. They don't want the crowds to turn against them, so they're trying to get Pilate to do their dirty work for them. Then they can blame Rome. Then they can say to the people, well, what could we do? That's Rome for you. Rome, they kill our boys. That's why we need a revolution around here. Do you see how they're all playing power games? They're all trying to get what they want because they all want to be in charge. But do you see who's really in charge? Verse 32, this took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death. In the Gospels, Jesus tells his disciples he was going to be handed over to Gentiles, handed over to the Roman authorities to be killed. In John's Gospel, whenever Jesus has talked about his death, he's talked about being lifted up from the earth. That the Jewish way of execution was stoning. The Roman way was to lift someone up on a cross. And we've seen how Jesus, he'd gone to the garden precisely so he could be arrested. We've seen how when the soldiers came, he didn't resist them. We've seen how he didn't defend himself before the high priest. He let himself get slapped. He infuriated them, so they sent him to Pilate, and all along he'd said he had come to die, to be lifted up on a cross. Did you see that? They all want to be in charge. They all want to be in charge, but he's the one who's really in charge. Through all their power games, he is fulfilling his great plan to be lifted up on a cross, to die, to bring life to the world. They all want to be king, but it's Jesus who is the true king of the cosmos, totally in charge. And you get a little glimpse of that in his exchange with Pilate. Pilate leaves the Jewish leaders outside. He goes back inside. And you see verse 33. He walks back inside. And as he's walking back in, verse 33, he went back inside into the palace and he summoned Jesus and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" I take it as he's walking back in, his advisors, he says to them, what's all this about? I was told I needed to authorize troops to arrest a dangerous criminal. Well, sir, we were told that the man, he claimed to be king of the Jews. And the thing is, people who claimed to be king of the Jews were the sort of people who were very dangerous because they were the sort of people who plotted to overthrow Roman rule because they wanted to set up a Jewish kingdom. So if this is true, if this is what Jesus is claiming, this is serious. So Pilate says, "Are you the king of the Jews?" In the original, the emphasis falls on you. You? Jesus has been up all night. He's been bound by soldiers. He's been slapped in the face by officials. He's a wreck, and he's just quietly standing there. You? You don't look like the sort of person who could overthrow us. And Jesus answers his question by asking his own question. He turns the tables. He puts the Roman governor on trial. Do you see that in verse 34? Is that your own idea, Jesus asked? Or did others talk to you about me? What do you think, Jesus says? Have you come to your own conclusions about who I am, or are you just going along with everyone else? It's a great question. It's the question Jesus puts to all of us today. The most influential man in the whole of history made claims that have changed the world, transformed lives, countless lives. Who do you think he is? Have you, as an adult, looked at the evidence for his existence? Have you read a gospel for yourself? Have you come to your own conclusions about him? Or have you just gone along with what everyone else is saying? Pilate says, "Am I a Jew?" The Jews hated the Romans, wouldn't go into the palace, but the Romans despised the Jews. Am I a Jew? See verse 35. Am I a Jew? Do you think I would just go along with the Jewish leaders? But he's puzzled. He's puzzled. Because the Jewish people hated Roman rule. And they'd been talking about this king who was going to come and set them free from their oppressors. And Pilate is like, if you really are the king of the Jews, I'd have thought your people would have been cheering for you. How come they hand you over to me to have you executed? Do you see what he says at the end of verse 35? What is it you've done? It makes no sense. What's going on? What is it you've done to offend them? And you're thinking, here's Jesus' moment, isn't it? Here's his moment to defend himself. To say, well, I've done nothing, actually. Actually, they're just playing games. I'm innocent. I'm not a threat to Rome. No way. You should let me go. But just like he doesn't resist arrest, just like he doesn't defend himself, never defends himself. Never defends himself. Because step by step by step, he is intentionally walking towards the death on a cross that will give us life. What he says is, verse 36, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders, but my kingdom's from another place." You see, in the kingdoms of this world, the way it works is, if you want power, what do you have to do? You have to fight for it. And Jesus is saying, if I was just another king fighting for power over the Romans, then I would have ordered my servants to fight. In Matthew's gospel, he said he would have, if he'd wanted to resist arrest, he could have called on legions of angels. But he says he doesn't fight for power, because his kingdom is not of this world. He's not just another king fighting for power. His kingdom is from, do you see at the end of verse 36, another place. And Pilate says, verse 37, "Oh, so you are a king then?" And Jesus answers him, "You say that I'm a king." And we're a little bit frustrated at this point, aren't we? Because we want to go, well, is Jesus a king or isn't he? Why can't he just give a straight yes or a straight no? It's because it's complicated. Because if he had said yes, well, he is a king, but he's not the sort of king Pilate's thinking about. And if he said no, well, that wouldn't be true. Because he is a king. He's king of the cosmos. So he explains why he has come. And he says, in fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. Came into the world? It's a very striking phrase, isn't it? Came what, from another place? From another world into this world? Where's he from? Who is he? And he says he's come to testify to the truth. He didn't come to fight, to claim the crown. He didn't come to become king somehow by overthrowing the Romans. He's not a pretender to the throne, like someone who would like power one day, who would love to be king one day. He's just come to testify to the truth. He says, look at me, not of this world, a kingdom beyond this world, bigger than this world. And look at me, and you will see I am its king. Do you see? He's not come to fight to become king, because he's just come to show us that he is king. In my experience, most people know that there is more to life than the things we can see and the things we can touch. But the story we have been told is that there is no God, there is nothing supernatural, the only reality there is physical reality, which means, when you come to it, we are no more than just accidental assortments of atoms. And you follow that to its logical conclusion, and all the actions that we think we choose are really just chemical reactions over which we have no control. And you see what's happened? We thought, get rid of God, and that'll set us free to be fully human. No, you get rid of God, and the logical conclusion is all that we most value about being human makes no sense. Our sense of moral responsibility, our rationality, our appreciation of beauty, our longing to be loved, all of it reduced to some kind of hardwired survival mechanism. Get rid of God, and we are no more than pre-programmed machines made of meat. But we feel we are more, don't we? People, when they find out I'm a vicar, they often want to tell me about some kind of transcendental experience they have had, some experience of music or beauty or love that made them feel that despite everything they've been told, there is something more than this world we can see and touch. And maybe that's you. You've had that experience. And it's real. But you can't make rational sense of it. So what happens is people who don't believe in God have to make this leap of faith. There's absolutely no grounds for it. They just have this sense that we are something more. There is something more that gives meaning to our lives, that makes our actions meaningful, our thoughts rational, that somehow makes love real, makes us precious. And Jesus says, I've come to show you that's not a leap of faith. There is more, and I am the evidence for it. He says, you want to know the truth? Look at me. And so we look at him. And we look at him heal the sick with a word. And we look at him walk on water. And we look at him calm a storm. And we look at him turn water into wine. We look at him feed 5,000 people with a small boy's packed lunch. And we look at him, finally, we look at him rise from the dead. And we see the evidence that there is more. We see the truth that he wants us to see, that there is a supernatural realm, there is a higher kingdom, and he is its king. Everyone else fighting for power. But you see, he's not fighting the Jewish leaders, is he? He's not fighting the Roman authorities. He's not come to fight to get power. Why? It's because he already has power. He already has all the power in the world because he is the king of the cosmos. And he has stepped into our world to show us the truth. Do you see how this has the potential to end our power games, the cycle of power games that we are caught up in? It, to put it very foolishly, it's like you and I, we're enjoying a curry together, right? But we get into an argument because there's a particular spice that we can't quite put our finger on, and you think it's coriander, and I think it's cumin, and we are squabbling away, and you say it's definitely coriander, and we're really arguing about the spice that's in this curry, and there's no way of breaking the cycle of fighting over the spice until the chef walks in, the guy who made it, and he knows, and he ends the argument. And you see, what Jesus is saying is it's not just me and you and them and us fighting for our truth, our latest idea of how we want to live. It's now, it's me and it's you listening to the king. The chef has walked in, the one who made it all. And he is worth listening to. And he reveals the truth. And you see, the truth he reveals is not just another stab at truth, another guess at what life might be about, but it's the truth, capital T truth, that makes sense of our world, that makes sense of who we are, because he knows, because it's his world, because he made it, and he made us. And I wonder what you make of that claim. Jesus says, at the end of verse 37, everyone on the side of truth listens to me. And I wonder, do you think he is worth listening to? Who do you think he is? And Pilate is brilliant. Do you see verse 38? What is truth? Retorted Pilate. It's a good question, isn't it? With this, he went out again to find the Jews gathered there and said, I find no basis for a charge against him. This Jesus, he's not a threat to Rome. I mean, he's got some weird ideas, but he's not a threat to Rome. I find no basis for a charge against him. And friends, at this point, if Pilate cared for truth, if Pilate cared for justice, what would he do at this point? He'd release Jesus, wouldn't he? But he's playing power games like everyone else. And he said he didn't care what the Jewish leaders thought. Am I a Jew? But he does want an outcome that will play well with them. So he makes it their decision. Do you see that in verse 39? He says, look, I find no basis for a charge against him, but I'll hand this over to you. It's your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release this king of the Jews? And they shouted back, no, not him. Give us Barabbas. And John adds, now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising. John doesn't want us to miss it. He says, do you see how that exposes them? So keen to hand Jesus over for being a danger to Rome, but when it comes to it, it's the rebel, the guy who really was a danger to Rome, who'd actually taken part in an uprising that they still has some work to do. So as we close, here is the thing. Pilate didn't listen. And the question is, will you? Will we? Listen to him. Because he's not just another king vying for power. He's the true king of the cosmos. And the truth he reveals is not just another claim. What he says makes sense of our world, of who we are, because he knows, because he made it all. Will you listen to him? And you could say a real Christian is quite simply someone who listens to the King, who used to choose for myself who I want to be, how I want to live, my truth. But now you see, now we listen to him. In every area of life, we go with what he says, because he's the King and he knows. And friends, maybe you call yourself a Christian, but you're in a bit of a muddle. And the reason you're in a muddle is because you've not settled this in your heart. You're not listening to him. You still want to choose how you want to live. And there are bits of what Jesus says you choose, and there are other bits you don't choose. Think of the things he says. He says, those people who are different, welcome them. Or he says, that person who hurt you, forgive them. Or he says, that person you love, if you're not married to them, don't have sex with them. Or he says, that person who's in need, they are your neighbor. Will you help them? And when we don't listen to him, we think, well, that's no big deal, is it? But it gives the game away. It shows what's going on in our hearts. It shows that we're not interested in truth. If we're interested in truth, we'd listen to him. The fact that we're not listening to him shows that we are more interested in power. In my life, I don't want to surrender power. In my life, I want to be king. And maybe the reason is because we just hate the idea of anyone with power telling us how to live. Because we think they're going to squash the life out of us. No. Do you see? Everyone else is trying to squash everyone else. In this episode, in our world today, everyone is trying to squash everyone. But what is Jesus doing? What does he do with his power? He uses his power to squash you? No. He uses his power to die for you. John keeps reminding us, it's Passover. It's when God's people remembered the lamb that died so we could live. And John wants us to keep making the link. This king who's not resisted arrest, who's not defending himself, who's choosing to die as a lamb, is the lamb. Totally innocent, totally blameless, totally pure. And he will die so that rebels like Barabbas, only not just Barabbas, rebels like me and you, people who want power, people who spend our days fighting and fighting, rebels like us, could go free and live. The end of his gospel, John writes, he's written his gospel so that we would believe that Jesus is the Messiah, he is the King, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. Believe he's the King, and he's the King who's not come to squash you. He's the King who's come to die so that you can have life. Not just your latest idea of life or their latest idea of life, but life. The life you were made for. So friends, this week, will you listen to the King and live? Let's pray. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me. Lord Jesus, give us such a sight of who you are, the King, and what you're like, the King who lays down his life for us, that it would be our joy to listen to you and live. Amen. Janet.
Please have a seat. And we've got some of the kids joining us, so grown-ups. Stick a hand in the air if you want to reclaim your child. Mike, we've got one question.
Okay.
We'll just have one.
Okay.
This is a really good question.
Okay.
It's hard to believe that everyone who rejects Jesus doesn't care about truth when so many are really good people. What do we make of that?
There's a couple of things there. It doesn't care about truth. So, again, one of the Bible's recurring claims is that the truth that there is a God is evident to all, because it's even before you look at Jesus, you can look at the world around us, and it speaks of a creator. So that's one of the Bible claims, is that creation declares the reality of God, and to not kind of go, my instincts are there's something more, and follow that up is truth evasion or truth suppression. And what was the other thing was, and there are good people, yeah?
I guess a lot of people who don't believe in Jesus, and yet they care about the truth. Sometimes more than Christians seem to.
Yes, yeah, and Christians need to be ashamed of the times we have muddled the kingdom of God with empire, and we have played power games rather than just quietly standing for the truth. Where Christians have been really convinced that Jesus is king, it has made for tolerance, always. Because they're not trying to get one over you. They're not trying to get our story over your story and impose it on people with power. They're just confident we tell the truth. I'm not the king. He's the king. We're on level ground. Will you listen to him? So wherever Christians have been really confident, they've not been defensive. They've been sort of open and tolerant, and society's reflected that. But yeah, of course there are good people who aren't Christians, because we're all made by God, and we're made to have a sense of right and wrong. Ultimately, though, Jesus says, if you're really good, you will live for God. That's the greatest good there is in this world. And that's the moment where we pick and choose and say, I will do lots of good things, but I don't want to give my whole life to living for God, because actually I want to retain power. Okay. So there is a power thing going on rather than just a truth thing.
Thank you. Mike, we'll leave it there. I just think that's such a good question, and if that's something you want to follow up with Mike afterwards and kind of come back to him on, Mike will be there to do that.